morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to your Global Edge webinar series. Today, we will be having a very interesting topic on cultural challenges in the Mexican oil industry, which will be presented by Alberto Garcia-Jurado. And also, today we have our partner, Michael Rosales from the U.S. Commercial Service, who will also give a brief presentation on their services. But before we begin with the webinar, I would like to first talk a little bit about the International Trade Center at the University of Texas at San Antonio and what we do here. We are the largest and most successful trade assistance organization in the state of Texas. We're funded by the Small Business Administration, the state of Texas, and the University of Texas at San Antonio. Our mission is to help businesses become globally competitive by providing consulting, training, and market research solutions that create economic impact for our clients. Our three primary areas of assistance are one-on-one consulting, customized market research depending on your business needs, and training. The difference is that we provide world-class consulting and market research solutions. Our staff consists of 8 experienced international consultants with CGBP credential, that's a Certified Global Business Professional certification, a market research team with state-of-the-art resources. We're always no cost and 100% confidential. And we also offer one-on-one, high-value, and long-term consulting engagement. And that's what differentiates the International Trade Center. We're also the only source for technical trade consulting in the region. Our clients include small and medium-sized businesses, exporters and importers, experienced and new to export, manufacturers, distributors, focused established mid-market companies, and foreign investors. The goal of our training programs is to teach how to, not what. They're interactive and hands-on. They cover the entire export-import process, and we have plus country region and topic-focused events. And we're combined with consulting processes and market research. Last year, we helped our clients create 909 jobs, retain 1,123 jobs. We helped our clients with their export sales to be about $490 million. And we helped our clients enter 174 new markets and introduce 136 products into the market. The International Trade Center at the university also provides assistance through sbbcglobal.com, which is an online trade platform that connects small businesses in the U.S., Mexico, Colombia, El Salvador, with trade opportunities and business assistance. If you're needing consulting services or assistance or have any questions on our training program, please feel free to contact us. This is our contact information. We're located in San Antonio at the University of Texas in San Antonio. Our phone number is 458-2470-210 area code, or you can check our website out at texastrade.org. Now, first, I would like to introduce Michael Rosales. He's an international trade specialist from the U.S. Commercial Service, and he's going to give a little presentation for their services. Mike?
Thanks, Annabelle. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being on this webinar. My name is Mike Rosales, and I'm the International Trade Specialist for the U.S. Commercial Service. And I'll be presenting a little bit about what we do and how we support new to export companies, small, medium-sized, and large companies as well. Annabelle, can you go to the next slide, please? We are basically we're the export promotion arm of the U.S. Department of Commerce, the International Trade Administration. We have about 165 offices in 82 countries worldwide. Our goal is to help companies either start to sell into new markets or help them increase in current markets. We also have worldwide colleagues who are industry specific and can help companies with market sales as far as growth, or whether they're trying to find distributors or reps. And our goal is to be there to protect U.S. companies as they sell abroad. Next slide, please. Some of the services that we offer are the International Partner Search, the Gold Key Service, and the International Company Profile. And this is just one slide to kind of give you an example of what we do. The International Partner Search is where the U.S. Embassy will help companies find foreign buyers. A lot of times we have companies, and I myself, will Google or will search for companies that will, be companies that I'm trying to identify. And a lot of times sales agents or sales reps will knock on doors and try to find that buyer. And the best part about the U.S. Commercial Service and the embassy support there in those foreign markets, they'll pick up the phone and call companies on your behalf. They'll make those introductions, and they'll find the best qualified buyers for your products and services. Next slide, please. The Gold Key Service is where a San Antonio company will go abroad to any destination, and they will have a set of appointments or an agenda of pre-screened companies that are interested in purchasing their product. What we usually do with this is we'll set up a conference call with our colleagues or our trade specialists overseas, and we'll help the company identify the companies that they're trying to reach out to. Maybe they've heard of them before through a trade show or online, or maybe they just came across their information and would like to meet with them. And so what we do is the embassy will pick up the phone, call on their behalf, basically advocate for this company and share with them their marketing material, their website, their intentions, their expansion within the market. And what we do is the U.S. Embassy colleague will also be with the U.S. company during these agenda meetings. And then the last service, which will be on the next slide, is called the International Company Profile. And the next slide, please, Annabelle. I'm sorry. The International Company Profile is where the U.S. Embassy will research. Well, let me back up. Let's just say, for example, you're a U.S. company and somebody overseas has contacted you and they want to buy, maybe $1 million worth of your product. And you don't know where they're from. You don't know anything about them, and they've identified you, and you're excited because you have an opportunity to sell $1 million worth of your product. And so what we do is we're able to, with the U.S. Embassy in that location, in that market, is able to vet the company. They'll research information. They'll find out financials, board of directors. They'll find out if there's any legal issues within the countries. They'll talk to local associations to find out whether this company is recommended or not. And they'll also sit down with the company in their location and ask them a list of questions. And they'll also give the recommendations based on those responses from that company. A lot of times we want to make sure that whenever a company goes abroad, they're dealing with the best partner, because once you establish a relationship with that company overseas, then they are your, they're an employee of yours. They're basically your advocate in that market. And if things don't turn out well and there's a problem at the end, it could cost you a lot more money. And so we want to be able to help you with that process and make it easier as you transition into those markets. Next slide, please. These are the services that we charge. We help companies that sell product that have at least 51% U.S. content or are a service provider. You'll notice that in the third column, SME, new to export companies using service for the first time. This is basically a small, medium enterprise that has under 500 employees. We'll charge them $350 for the first time use, and then after that it will basically be the price of the second column, which is the SME company. So Gold Key matchmaking service for the first time in a market or a destination will be $350. For the second destination, it will be $700, and it'll stay that price for each market until you have over 500 employees. once you have more than 500 employees, you'll be listed as a large company, and so that would be the final column where the price increases. Our goal is cost recovery. Our colleagues overseas are doing a lot of the work and calling companies and doing a lot of in-depth marketing research for you to get you with the best fit. And a lot of times, this is the best way in entering a market. Sometimes you can spend, man hours for months trying to identify the right partner or the right company to sell to. And this is a minimal fee that will help you obtain that goal. Next slide, please. And just to let you know, this is our website. It's www.export.gov. And anybody can go to this website. If you look at the blue column, you'll see opportunities, solutions, locations. If you click on locations, and next slide, please. When you click on locations, you'll be able to see this next page, and it will show you where all our colleagues are all over the world. And so we're available to you in those markets. And even below, there's markets that we also work with our partner post, which is State Department. And so we are basically all over the world to help you sell in whatever market. Next slide, please. And this is my contact information. You can reach me at 210-472-4020. I'm available, at your disposal. Any company that needs help in entering markets, we work in tandem with the International Trade Center as far as offering market research and consulting, and we do that for free. Anything that we could provide on this side as far as market research or consulting, we'd be happy to do that for you. So please feel free to contact us at your convenience. Annabelle, thank you for the opportunity, and we'll be passing it on to Alberto.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for letting us, giving us information about the U.S. Commercial Service. Now I would like to introduce our speaker for today, Alberto Garcia-Jurado. He's a president. There you go. Alberto Garcia-Jurado is the president for Cultural System Management. He's the CEO of Cultural System Management Incorporated. He's the president of the Cultural Effectiveness Center. He's a former president of the Gulf chapter for the U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce, has been an advisor and trainer with Pemex and major OCTG corporations for over 15 years. He's the author of the books Cultural Intelligence for the 21st Century and Cultural and Globalization. He created the collaboration system management technology and sought-after speaker on intercultural understanding and collaboration system management topics. So now I would like to open the webinar to our speaker, Alberto Garcia-Jurado.
Hello, Annabelle. Good morning, everybody. Before we start, I'd just like to thank Annabelle and the International Trade Center and also, the U.S. Commercial Service. I'd just like to say that through the years, both as president of the U.S.-Mexico Chamber in the Gulf and many other ways, I've seen the great work you all do, and it's fantastic. So thank you again, and thanks for the invitation. So let's begin. What I'd like to share with you is one of the, there are many great opportunities opening up now in the Mexican energy sector because of the reforms and everything that's happening. And there are many very good speakers talking about all the different aspects that you have to consider when you go down there to do business in the oil and the energy sector in general. The UTSA itself has some great speakers like Tom Stoll who will tell you all you need to know about the technical aspects and the amount of opportunities you have there. We also hear a lot about regulatory challenges and the technical environment of this. But one of the issues that doesn't get as much attention, I think, as it should, is the cultural challenges. There are companies, of course, such as Weatherford or Schlumberger have been doing the business in Mexico forever, and they're very aware of this. They have people with a lot of experience. There are many other companies that are probably just beginning to explore the Mexican oil industry or the energy sector in general, and they should be aware of what they're facing down there. So Today we're going to be talking, and we're going to go to the next slide, please. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, this is just a little brief background. I've been, advising business on intercultural and collaborative system issues for 26 years, and I have 12 years of experience as advisor and trainer with banks and other companies in the sector. So anyway, today we're going to be talking about two aspects: the social environment, how it differs, how society looks at oil, and how society interacts with the oil industry in Mexico as opposed to the U.S. And also, we're going to be discussing the cultural differences you have in the business-to-business environment when you do different kinds of business. Well, you can be as a vendor, as a supplier, or in a joint venture, or as partnerships. So we'll be taking a look at those two in particular, and I will be closing with a brief look at Pemex, which although it's changing right now, and Pemex is not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same all-powerful company it used to be. It is still going to be one of the key players in the oil business in Mexico, and it is a company to be reckoned with. So we're going to take a very brief look also at Pemex. So okay, let's begin with something that I always like to use to highlight the differences. Okay, let's say you are in the U.S. and they say that they just found oil in your land. What is going to be your reaction? Well, for most people in the United States, their reaction is going to be one of euphoria. They're going to go, great, we're going to get a lot of money. We're going to be rich. We're going to have a lot of, we're going to get what the companies are going to give you. There's a very old cartoon from Texas back in the '60s with the second oil boom. And there's this farmer, a little run down house, and he's digging outside and suddenly he finds soil, and then his wife is right on the phone and saying, "Baby, what's the phone number for Neiman Marcus?" And that's like the first reaction, right? Hey, it's go and spend. Whereas in Mexico, you have the same thing, and they find oil in your land. The first reaction you're going to have is that it's like, oh my God, that's the worst thing that could happen to me. I'm going to lose my land. They're going to give me very little money for it because they're going to expropriate it, and it's all bad. It is changing a little bit now. Currently, landowners are going to be getting a percentage of this, but it's still a very complex process, and it's still not necessarily clear how that's going to happen. And also, culture doesn't change that fast. So most people perceive oil being found in their land as something really bad. So that just shows you just how big the cultural divide in the oil sector and the culture of oil is between the United States and Mexico. Okay? As a matter, we have to be very aware that the social view of oil in Mexico is very, very different from that in the U.S. This comes from the history. Okay, in the United States, oil has always been a private business. Ever since oil exploration really began back in Pennsylvania in 1859 in Titusville, it all started with individuals drilling for oil, looking for that wealth, creating companies, Standard and the Pacific Coast Oil, Mobil, all those came about. It started in 1859, and just to give you an idea, by 1902, there were more than 1,500 oil companies that already chartered in the U.S. So it has always been a private business. It has always been up to the initiative of the individual to go out there and explore and develop. It is a very very social, very individual business. And of course, the ownership has historically provided great wealth to individuals. You have Rockefellers, Pickens, Hunts. So it is that culture. It's a private sector culture. It is business. So individuals, of course, are very involved in developing that wealth. Now, in Mexico, we have to understand that the business has been developed very differently. Initially, it was a foreign-owned business. Most of the companies that started developing oil in Mexico were actually companies from both the United States and Great Britain, basically. Most of them, like El Águila, although they were Mexican companies, they were really subsidiaries of great companies like Shell or, British Petroleum and other companies. So initially, foreigners came and started developing oil. Now, through the years, there was a lot of social tension, and finally, for many other reasons that we're not going to discuss at this time, in 1938, then President Lázaro Cárdenas expropriated the foreign oil companies and created Petróleos Mexicanos, which is a state-owned company. So let's be aware of something very important. Mexicans as individuals, as a person, have never had possession of oil. Oil has never been seen as individual wealth in Mexico. This is something to keep very much in perspective when you're down there doing business, and if you get to do part of exploration or drilling, you are going to be meeting with the ejidatarios, which is the kind of figure the Mexican agro industry gathers around. It's like collective farms, collective. It's a legal form of ownership of the land. So you're going to be meeting with that. You're going to be meeting with the mayors from the little towns, from private farmers, and the fishermen out in the offshore. And their view of oil is totally different from what you would expect and you're used to having here in Texas, Oklahoma, or anywhere in the U.S. So let's keep that in mind, okay? For Mexicans, as a matter of fact, when the President Lázaro Cárdenas expropriated the oil companies, the reaction was, as we can see here, it was euphoric. Everybody in all the towns in Mexico and the cities, poured out into the streets to celebrate, and they were carrying, as you can see, coffins with the names of the foreign-owned companies, and there was this great celebration. So it was seen as a moment of great national pride that we were taking our oil back. Okay, and also another big factor is that once the companies were expropriated, the companies went with their respective governments, and they were not too happy about what they were getting for their assets. So both the U.S. and the British government at the time started pressuring the Mexican government, and actually President Lázaro Cárdenas sent out for help and said, that we need to pay these companies what is owed to them, and we need the help of all the citizens. And amazingly, you could see, this picture is not that clear, but you could see people going out to different places in Mexico. It was in the Palace of the Fine Arts in the Bellas Artes and in other places in Mexico, actually donating their jewelry, donating their, some people brought chicken, anything that they could donate to help pay this debt. So in a very real sense, Mexicans historically feel that it's their oil. It's a collective asset, because they not only it doesn't not only belongs to the nation, but in effect the grandfathers and grandparents of many of the Mexicans now living actually helped pay for the debt for the expropriation. So what do we have as a result of this so very different histories? Well, in the USA, oil is private property, first and foremost. It is individual wealth and benefit. It is a symbol of progress and wealth for the individual, and of course for society. As we know here in Texas, shale started popping up and growing so much, you could just see the change happening here in our state. So it is very much seen as that. Whereas in Mexico, it is public property. It has never been really private property of Mexican citizens. So it is traditionally seen as social wealth with no personal benefit. Okay. It is a symbol of pride. It is a symbol of independence. But within all that play, because of historical reasons, individuals also look to get their benefits from oil by many other means. Give you some examples of this. For example, I had the pleasure of advising in the Chicontepec Basin, which is in the central north Mexico in the Gulf. It's a very large region, and they were doing a lot of drilling and exploration onshore. And for the year and a half I was there with them, you could go to you could go to the different ejidos and the little towns and everything because something else. These are very densely populated regions. So you will always find farms, towns, everything where you're going to be drilling. So Pemex people would go down there and they would have to negotiate, even though by federal law they can just come and expropriate land. Of course, they have to pay for it, but they usually pay just the lowest value, and then that's it. They would have to negotiate because people said, okay, yeah, you can come and you can take land and you can drill, and we won't do anything about it. But once you start drilling, what we can do is we'll just block your roads. So yeah, we won't take land, but how are you going to get there? Or we're going to do, well, many other things that as you can imagine, a population around oil wells can do to passively resist. So what happens is usually the mayor of the town would say, fine, yeah, do this, but we would like to have a new library, or we would like for you to build us a basketball court or a football field, or you know what, we need you to help us repave this road here. So that would be one thing, or Hiratayo generally, farm owner would say, yeah, fine, but why don't you help me build a new fence here? And jokingly, the head of that region for Pemex jokingly used to say sometimes he felt more like part of the government infrastructure development process than part of the oil company. So that is very much, and individuals, they see it as, getting their fair due because it's our oil. So we're just getting what is due. It's nothing bad, it's nothing wrong. It is just getting what is ours. Okay. So this is socially, this is some of the points you have to be ready to understand that when you go down there, you're not going to be talking with people who see oil as something that's going to benefit them because they're going to extract oil. They're going to have to find the benefit in other ways. And it's a social asset, public property. Okay? And it is also a symbol of pride and independence. That's changing, and it's going to change even more with the reforms. But remember, the legal reforms might be in place, but culture takes a long time to change. It goes slowly. So people are still even not very happy. A lot of people are not very happy that they're seeing it as hey, we're selling out our oil to foreign companies again, and we're losing all the benefits of the revolution, whatever. But it will be changing, but it's slow. Culture changes slowly. So in the next 10 years, for the next 10 years, you're still going to meet a lot of this if you go down there. Okay. Now, let's talk about the business to business. What are you going to find in the B2B section when you do joint ventures or partnerships, or you're going to be working as a vendor or as a supplier for another company such as Pemex, or any other form of business to business collaboration that you can have in the sector? Okay, here I'd like to go very much into the cultural dimensions that are going to play in business and see how the U.S. corporations and Mexican companies stack up against each other in the key dimensions that affect the business. Okay, and for that I'd like to start with two large frames of reference that impact almost any company in the world. And the first one is the core social orientation that we have. Okay, and in that sense, there are two kinds of cultural groups in the world. You get cultures of being, which are very much relationship oriented, where the most important thing is the place of the individual in the social network of the group, who you are, who your parents are, who you're a friend with. And don't get me wrong, we always say that know who is just as important as know how. But in this country, know who is hugely more important. Okay? And in other cultures of doing, there's more of a task orientation, where the most important element, the factor, is the perceived achievements of the individual, how good the individual is, what they have achieved in their life. Just to give you an idea, in Mexico, for example, if I'm going to a presentation, they need to know my title. Titles are very important because who you are. I am an architect, I am an engineer, I am this, I'm a doctor, So titles are very important. And one time I was going to do lecture somewhere in the Gulf, and the hostess, the center actually refused to present me until I told them my title, so we introduced me with my title. Right? And whereas, so Mexico is very much a culture of being, and relationships are critical. Whereas here in the United States, we're very much a culture of doing. Okay? We are very much task-oriented. And just to further highlight this, when I was acting president of the Gulf chapter for the U.S.-Mexico Chamber of Commerce, we used to host, as you might imagine, a lot of get-togethers between businessmen and women and entrepreneurs from the Gulf region and Mexico with missions from the United States and entrepreneurs wanted to do business down there. And it was always interesting to see how the Mexican business owner came with a couple of samples and some information about the company. But they always emphasized that the first thing was to get to know each other. Let's get to know each other, and then we can do business. So let's be, and then let's do. Right? Whereas American business people came down there, and they had what they wanted and some of the fun points, and the kind of business they wanted to do, but they didn't really care too much about exploring personal relationships. What they said is, I'm not here to waste time on that. We're here to do business, right? So for them, it was first do, and then let's be in the future. And this is two very different core social orientations in that sense. And the other of the two very important basic frames of reference is the core time and process orientation. How do we perceive time, process, and benefits? Okay, and in this sense, there are two large groups also. You got long-term orientation, which is a focus on the future, and these are cultures that are willing, and as a matter of fact, they insist on delaying short-term gratification. As you might imagine, U.S. still, although it's changing little by little, but it's still a long-term orientation culture where people will think very much about the future. They will do deals and say, okay, I'm not getting benefit right now, but I will be getting this very good benefits in the next 5, 10 years. Or they will be saving for their, for the retirement, and the future is a very big deal in long-term oriented cultures, especially in business. In business, people will sacrifice short-term gains if they know they're with the right partners, doing the right kind of business, because they know that in the long term they will have very important benefits. Now, on the other hand, short-term orientation cultures are cultures very much focused on the present and the past. These are cultures that perceive the future as abstract. It's not something as tangible as what it is for long-term orientation cultures. And short-term orientation cultures are looking for an immediate benefit. What they want to have is immediate gratification. And for them, what's tangible is both the present and the past. I want to reinforce that's very important. Past is very important for short-term orientation cultures. And again, the U.S. is a long-term oriented culture, whereas Mexico is a short-term oriented culture. In Mexico, if you talk about benefits 10 years down the road, most of the people, I'm not saying this is absolute, there are no absolutes in culture, but there's a high percentage, 90% or more, of the business owners and entrepreneurs you meet are short-term oriented. They want to see a short-term benefit. And they are willing to sacrifice long-term benefits for short-term gain or gratification. So it's a total opposite. And this, of course, creates a lot of tension, negotiation, and the way businesses are structured. Okay. So we have to keep those two things in mind. Now, let's, keeping those two core forms of collaboration and basic frames of reference, let's look at the 5 behavioral dimensions that have the greatest impact on how we do business within society. And those are the dimensions of hierarchy, how we use hierarchy and power within the group expectations of interdependence, how we manage uncertainty, how we manage time, and time and process, which are very related, and how we manage information. So let's begin with hierarchy, with the dimension of hierarchy, which in intercultural analysis is called power distance. In this sense, cultures with high power distance have a natural acceptance of unequal distribution of power. They see it as natural. It's very interesting, but high power distances, like most of Latin America, most of Africa, most of Asia, as a matter of fact, and all of the whole of Middle East, except Israel, are high power distance cultures in which the person who has power is seen to have power more as a natural consequence of who they are. It is natural that they have power because of the situation within the social group. Okay, so in Mexico, for example, I would jokingly say that the patron, which is like the boss, is el patron, and the son of el patron is el patroncito, or the little boss. And I've seen this in rural Mexico, which is still very, very traditional. And you see this little 10-year-old boy go out, and he's the son of el patron, and he can go out and start ordering everybody around, and everybody will follow the orders because they are the son of the patron. They have power in themselves, and it's natural. Okay? So this is something. It is changing, especially in the large metropolitan areas, like in the city of Mexico City or Monterrey. And we have a lot of people who go out abroad, different kind of education, or are exposed to a more cosmopolitan environment. But it's still a small percentage of the population. We're talking no more than 15% of the population. 80% of the population is still very much within the high power distance culture. Okay. Now, on the other hand, you have low power distance cultures that view unequal distribution of power as circumstantial. Right now, in this particular moment in time, this other person might have more power because they are the owners of the company, or because they have more knowledge on the subject, or because they have acquired more money and they're putting out more money. But it's not because of a natural superiority that they might have over anybody else. It is not that they deserve it, it is that they earned it, or that the circumstances have provided them with a temporary differential power. Here in the United States, we always believe that you can take over the boss's spot, the job of the boss, and anybody can do any work. It's one of the things that always shocks a lot of academics or consultants from Mexico who come here to the United States, is that when they have partners from the US, it happens to me, somebody will start working with them and says, oh, you know what, this is great, this is amazing, I'll keep studying, a couple of years more and I'll know just as much as you do, I'll be just as good as you. Whereas in Mexico, that would sound like almost like a front. It's like, I know because I'm the specialist, you can never be as good as I am. So it's high power distance, low power distance. And in business, this is very important. In a high power distance business environment, hierarchy and the respect for hierarchy, and the respect for lines of report, and the respect for giving everybody their proper place is hugely important. Another very high power distance culture is, for example, Japan, where, as we all know, everybody has to deal with according to hierarchical levels, and there's a lot of respect provided to people who have a greater hierarchy. So it is that kind. We have to be very careful to respect hierarchy and use the proper titles and the proper deference to people who have power. The next one of this is group expectations. And in group expectations, we have two kinds of cultures: collectivists and individualists. In collectivistic cultures, the individual gain validation. Let's understand that we all we're gregarious beings. We want to live within a group. There are a few exceptions, of course, but then again, they're just that, exceptions. Most of us want to be validated and want to be accepted by a group. And in collectivistic cultures, that validation, that acceptance is gained through how much loyalty the individual has for the group, or how much of themselves, of their individuality, the individual is willing to surrender to the group. Okay, you see it with all the like the Italians, which are very also collectivistic culture. The Southern Italians, when they came to the United States, it was very much the family, and it was how much you give yourself to the family. You see it in the Godfather. It's all those movies. It's very collectivistic. It's you surrender yourself. And then in the individualistic cultures, validation is gained through the autonomy and the self-sufficiency that the individual demonstrates. is very much the opposite. It is how self-sufficient you are, then we as a group will give you respect and we will validate it within the group. It seems like a paradox for collectivistic culture. You can say, how can a group validate you for being independent? But individualistic cultures understand it very well. I mean, one thing is respecting and collaborating, and another thing is surrendering your individuality to the group. So it's two very different ways of looking at group expectations and correlations. Now, again, the United States is a highly individualistic culture, where the individual can go on and accomplish, and they can live for themselves. And whereas Mexico is a very collectivistic culture. There in business, loyalty within the business is very important. That's one of the big issues that there's always in business between the U.S. and Mexican business people. And in Mexico, being loyal is one of the most important qualities that a worker can have. You might not be that good, you might not be that knowledgeable, but if you're loyal, that makes up for a lot of things. Whereas in the United States, it's very different. It's more about your skills and your capabilities. And therefore also, for example, in Mexico, it's not as common to see professionals jumping from job to job because they got a better offer, because of loyalty. Loyalty is so valuable. And the same happens in B2B situations. One company does business with another, it's expected to be personal, to be loyal, expected to be a more deeply personal than just business-related situation. The next of the dimensions is uncertainty avoidance. And this is the level to which unknown situations are perceived as threatening. And for this, let me just say that whereas in the United States, we're such a low uncertainty avoidance culture that new is almost synonymous with better. I mean, here in the United States, you ask people, what does new mean to you? New technology, new systems, new. And everybody will say, well, it's good. New is good, new is better, new means progress. We still are humans, and no human likes uncertainty that much, but there are some cultures that actually like certainty more than others, at certain degrees. Whereas Mexico is a very low uncertainty avoidance culture, high uncertainty avoidance culture. In Mexico, new is not necessarily good. What's been proven, what's been used, what's been there for generations, that's what people usually prefer. In Mexico, we even have a saying, which is más vale malo por conocido que bueno por conocer, which means it is better bad but known than good but unknown. And that just shows the incredible level of uncertainty avoidance we have. And the same in business, this happens also. To be able to sell something new, something that is not necessarily known to the person or to the individual or to the company, it takes first building up a lot of safety through creation of strong social relations. And then once people are sure of you as a person, then they are more comfortable with getting something new as a technology, in the sense of technology. Then the next one is how we manage information, how we transfer and transmit information. In that sense, there are two kinds of cultures. We have high context cultures and low context cultures. And in that sense, high context means cultures in which the meaning of what the receiver is getting, the meaning of what is being transmitted by someone to somebody else, is like about 30%, 40% what is being verbally said, but the majority, 60, 70% of what is actually, of the meaning of what is being said, has to be understood through the context and the non-verbal communication you're having. Okay, so these are cultures where you have to understand the meaning of the person, not just about what they say. You have to understand what is not being said in order to really understand what the meaning is of what is being transmitted is. And then you have, of course, low context cultures where, although we're all humans, and there's always a part of nonverbal and contextual impact on the meaning of communication, but almost 50, 60, or 70% of what is of the meaning of what is being said is related to what is being verbally expressed. So, give an example. And as you might have guessed, in Mexico we have a very high context culture. whereas in the United States you have a very low context culture. There are many other high context cultures. As a matter of fact, most of the world is very high context. We're talking Japan, most of Asia, almost all of Africa, and most of Latin America, with a couple of exceptions, one of them being Chile, for example. But most of the world is high context, and then you have some low context cultures, such as the United States or Finland, or most of the Northern European countries. So in that sense, again, in Mexico, I've been selling services and products for almost 30 years in Mexico, and I can still tell you, even after all that time, I have never had a case where somebody just came out and said, "No, thank you, we don't want that right now. We're not interested." In that sense, also, when we've advised U.S. companies going down there to offer services, it's interesting always to see how they do their pitch, their presentation, and then the Mexican executive will say, "This is great, we like it, we're going to be discussing it with my boss, and we'll call you right back because we really like it." And the U.S. executive will come out of the meeting really hyped and saying, "I think we got a great chance." And then I will have to kind of ground them and tell them, "No, they actually said no." And they will go, their eyes will go blank and say, "What do you mean they didn't say?" They said no. I said, "Yeah, just didn't listen to the nonverbal communication in the context." But that's the kind of thing. And again, there you're going to look at a very high context communication, culture in business, and social force. And the final dimension that I'm going to share with you of the 5 key dimensions that have the greatest impact on how business-to-business collaboration happens is the use of time. Time is very much related to process. Okay, the way we use time is also the way we use process. And here we have 2 very different kinds of cultures in the world. You've got what they call monochronic cultures and polychronic cultures. This comes from the Greek monochronic, monochronos, which means one single time, and polychronic from polychronos, many different kinds of time. Monochronic cultures have the characteristic of managing time technically, mechanically. Okay, they manage time by the clock. There is a mechanical, technical use of the time, and it's measured in units called seconds and minutes. And you have a technical indicator, a mechanical indicator, which is the clock, and everybody manages like that. So in a monochronic culture, when you say 10 a.m., like when we say we're going to start 10 a.m. the webinar, everybody understands the same 10 a.m., which is when the clock strikes 10 in the morning, right? Now, in polychronic cultures, time is managed more organically. I mean, of course, there's also a clock, and there's also minutes and seconds, but the meaning of time and the meaning of time agreements depends very much on situation, hierarchy, state of mind, many things. So if you're having a really good meeting and it's supposed to finish at 11, and you feel the meeting is really going good, you keep it going. It doesn't matter if you're going to have to push your next opponents a little bit. Nobody minds. It's just a situation. Or if somebody has more power than others, then you have all the right in the world to keep everybody waiting, or use time as you see fit. So it is very much an organic thing. So for in a polychronic culture, when you use a 10, everybody will understand their own particular 10 according to their circumstances of the moment. So it might be 10:05 or 10:15 or 10 o'clock, or it might be a little before 10. It all depends on how everybody's doing at the moment. So as you can see, it's a monochronic and polychronic cultures. And this has a huge impact, as you might imagine, in business and in process management. In monochronic cultures, timetables are very, very strict. The expectation of keeping time agreements is total. And not doing it is one of the signs of the greatest disrespect for somebody else or for the business itself. Whereas in polychronic cultures, relationship is much more important, situation is much more important than the mechanical aspects of time. And that in polychronic cultures, timetables are just like guidelines, and the process that you establish is a process that might go, step by step, but we might jump ahead a couple of steps if the time is right and then come back to the other ones. Whereas in a monochronic culture, time, process is also seen as linear, and you take one step at a time in the proper order. And this also affects business hugely, as you might imagine. Now, I like to to close this with what we call the cultural dimension DAISY, which shows the two basic frames of reference and the 5 dimensions. And if we look at the one for Mexico and the one from the United States side to side, you can see how fun it is, because where Mexico is polychronic, the United States is monochronic. Mexico is client collectivist, the United States is individualist. Mexico is high uncertainty evasion, and the United States low uncertainty evasion. Mexico has high power distance, whereas the United States has low power distance, and Mexico has high context communication, whereas the United States is low context communication. And Mexico is a being short-term culture, whereas the United States is doing long-term culture. We could not be more opposites in every single aspect. And that's one of the things that explains why, whereas the northern border is very integrated, the southern border, even after hundreds of years, is still not that well integrated. Because we're just so different in every one of the dimensions. So you have to keep in mind these 5 aspects and these 2 very important core frames of reference when you go down there to do business with other companies. This is, I cannot stress how important this is. Put your dimension DAISY on top of the other and see exactly all the areas where you will have marked differences in how you do business and how you manage collaboration. But once the business gets going, okay? This is very, very important. Now, as I said, I wanted to finish with go ahead and finish with some presentation of what's happening with PEMEX right now. As I said, I have a long history with PEMEX, and I've been with them for almost over 15 years. And let's talk a little bit about PEMEX. PEMEX traditionally has been an extremely vertical and hierarchical culture, even for Mexico, which tells us a lot. Okay? Just to highlight this, I'll tell you, PEMEX has 45 hierarchical levels in the company, and that is, a lot. So it is a very vertical, hierarchical company. The respect for hierarchy is huge. Everybody respects the higher levels, the prerogatives, the expressions of respect are very, very big. There's a lot of focus on process and production. That might seem logical, but not necessarily so. Everybody's focused on production because they have to achieve certain levels of production. But traditionally, they have to be focused on that. Because of, if the president of Mexico or the general director of PEMEX is saying that we're going to have this production, then we cannot make them look bad. Everybody has to work hard to get that production going. And every little process has to be followed. And they also have, traditionally, the PEMEX used to have a very low awareness of efficiency, of profit. Everybody knew what was happening with production, how many barrels, and how much gas and how much oil was being produced, and the budgets. Everybody was very conscious of budgets also, because like in any government agency budget, keeping the budget is very important. But there was no real awareness of efficiency in relation to profit. This is very important. It has always been a government, a government company, a public, a government-owned company, and the resources were always there. And also, very important, the political considerations were strategic and even operational guidelines. Operations sometimes was the guidelines for how we're going to do the operation, where we're going to drill, and how we're going to do things, was very, very, very much influenced by political considerations. And there are many examples of going and drilling and trying to extract certain levels of production, even though everybody knew it was going to be very hard, because at certain levels it had been stated that that was the goal. So both those political considerations had greater weight than even technical considerations in the past. And there was huge organizational pride. PEMEX always saw itself as Mexico. For them, it's we are Mexico. And in many ways they were. We have to understand that for a long time, and still to a degree, to a degree that almost 40% of the federal budget came out from oil. So oil was the source of revenues for the federal government, and indeed one of the main sources of revenue for the whole country. In many ways, the way Pemex went is the way the country went. So there was this great pride. And, you know, we are the most important company. We are making. Now, through the years, especially in the last I don't know, 5 years, there's been so much change and so many things happening. You know, especially, and I would emphasize the last 2 years with the reform and with the prices of oil and the behavior of the oil business, the way it's been behaving, and all the restructure that Pemex has had to go through in order to adjust itself to new realities. That culture is changing quite a very accelerated pace. There has been a great relaxation of verticality. Okay, now there's a little bit more collaboration among the unit. There's a greater integration of units that is being in many ways forced by the new structures being put into place, although it's still a very highly hierarchical organization. You know, respect for the boss and respect for hierarchy is still all the preeminent considerations. So, very interestingly enough, there's been an internal migration to focus on business results. There's a little language that started being sitting into Pemex culture that wasn't used before, such as profit margins, profitability, you know, cost analysis, all these kind of things, as a very important focus of the business process. In many ways, everybody was kind of joking about the fact that they changed the name of the company from a company-owned company, government-owned company to a state-owned productive company. But in many ways, the change in the name was just a symbol for the actual changes that are happening within the company. And again, it is hard for people who have never thought about, you know, drilling or exploration or production in terms of profits, specifically profit, to start doing it. But there are a lot of, and there's something there, there are many very good people within Pemex, and all the new leadership that is coming into it is very much the spirit of this change. They understand perfectly profit and the importance of being a profitable company. It's going to be an interesting process to watch, but they are in that right now. Also, strategy and situation are forcing a much greater focus on efficiencies. At the beginning of the year, Pemex let go most of its outsourced personnel. They have, as you know, a huge payroll, and they have a lot of people in there, but they are slowly letting go people. They are not going to be, you know, once people start retiring, they're not going to be hiring more people. So this is by itself forcing the different units to become more focused on efficiency. They are facing a new reality where they have, every day they're going to have to do more and more, and with less people, so that they're more than ever focusing on efficiency. And political considerations continue to be primary guidelines, although they are being now more balanced by this focus on profitability and efficiency. But still, political considerations, like in any government-owned company, are high up there. The considerations of how we're going to operate, what we're going to do. Also, it's very important to notice that the self-perception of Pemex is changing a lot in the new generations. And by that I mean all the younger people who are coming here are people with a new culture. Most of them are educated, they're engineers, they're professionals, they live, you know, the internet, they live in a very different social environment, so they come, and they are very proud of working in Pemex, but they understand all the also negative aspects of Pemex and the positive aspects. So it's a more tempered pride. Yes, we're proud of being part of Pemex, but we realize everything has to change. It is a very different generation now, the ones that are coming in. And the way they perceive the organization is also very, very different. So it has become, like I said, a more balanced pride. There's still pride in there, but it's a more balanced pride. And these are people who are more open to, you know, acquiring new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things in the social, not in the technical. In the technical, traditionally, Pemex has been very good at acquiring technology. It's something that's sometimes overlooked. They are very, 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 very good technical people in Pemex. It's just that the system sometimes doesn't help that much. Now, taking a little crystal ball and kind of looking to the future, and this don't hold me to this, but this is just how I proceed because of the trajectory and the way the culture is unfolding right now, and all the pressures around it. I would like to share with you what I see is going to happen with Phoenix in the next 10 to 15 years in turn. Okay. In the future, I see there's a more relaxation of verticality, and because of the new generations coming in, the new dynamics within the company, there will be a greater relaxation of hierarchical culture. We are looking at that, and it's going to happen. That's going to be one of the fastest things that we will see in the next about 5 years, 5 to 10 years. Okay. There will be a much greater focus on business results. Why? Because Pemex will already have competition. Other companies will start competing. Now, there are several issues there. Efficiency and profitability is primary indicators, but there are several issues. Although right now the Mexican government is expecting the Pemex to perform and to compete with other private sector companies, they still have a lot of regulatory, straitjackets, and they still get most of their profits taken by the Mexican government. So in many ways, they're in a very unenviable situation, and they feel internally this contradiction. On the one hand, they are being asked to compete, but then they are not given the same equal conditions that private sector companies have. So it's going to be something that has to be solved in the next couple of years, and that's going to have to be solved by Congress and by the Mexican government. But right now, the change will be happening, and their focus will become mainly on business results. And as a government-owned company, political considerations will always continue to be important guidelines, but hopefully in the future, they will not be the primary guidelines. They will be just important guidelines. And that way, if I may say so, they're very similar to most large corporations, which are, in effect, almost bureaucracies themselves. And whereas we know political considerations do have a great influence in how things are done. But the main focus will become business results, efficiency, profitability. And hopefully, Pemex will be able to change enough to become, in Mexico and the Mexican oil sector, first among equals, or at least equal to everybody else. This is, in a nutshell, how I see things happening with Pemex. And then again, it's important to be aware of this because although everything is changing, Pemex is still the force to be reckoned with and the largest oil company in Mexico, and it will continue to be so in the foreseeable future. So it is important to realize what's happening and what their culture is. Okay, added to what we saw for the Mexican cultures. Whatever we saw for the Mexican cultures and the cultural dimensions goes for Pemex without saying. So so to close, I'd like to make some final recommendations. If you're going to go down there and explore the opportunities we have right now for the oil sector. The first one is in dealing with communities, if you get to that point where you are actually, as part of a partnership or by yourself, doing the exploration and doing parts of the drilling process, whatever, remember, keep in mind the collective view of oil wealth. You're dealing with people that see oil as theirs. And when they see you coming, they won't see you coming as an individual company. They'll see you coming as a subcontractor for Pemex because they've been dealing with Pemex, and Pemex has been, and oil has been Mexican throughout all their last 3 generations. So that's going to take time to change. So when you go down there, be very careful how you negotiate. Don't try to negotiate from a perspective of the benefit you're going to have, but try to show certain benefits. Try to show how you're willing to work with the communities, how to work with them. It's what's happened also in the U.S. All companies have to be very careful of working with the communities, but this goes like it's 100 times more. So be very aware of this collective view of work in dealing with the communities. The second recommendation I would make, just a second, is personal relationships. Go down there and make sure that you establish good personal relationships at all levels. Okay, that is going to be one of the cornerstones for the success of any project established out there. Give yourself the time and allow yourself or your teams the time for establishing strong personal relationships. I cannot emphasize how important this is, both with the clients, with partners, but also with suppliers. In order to have the most efficient supply chain you can have in many parts of where you'll be doing business down in Mexico, like in Tabasco, in the states of Tabasco, Campeche, and Veracruz, having a good personal relationship with your supplier is critical if you want to have a good supply chain. Okay. Communication is not direct. You're gonna be getting to using like unclear responses or even dishonest responses. It's not true. That's not what happened. It's just that in high context cultures, when you're dealing with somebody from your own culture and you use this high context communication, it's perfectly understood. When I'm talking with another Mexican, I understand perfectly what they're saying, even if it's not verbal. Okay. The problem comes when you have people from two different cultures like this and you're dealing with them, and then the Mexicans will be communicating from this high context situation, and the Americans will be trying to interpret just from what's being said. So watch out, communication is not direct. You have to take your time to really clarify and to this personal relationship, be able to ask, okay, is this real, or what are you mean? What is this meaning? Okay. So very important. Yeah, another important aspect of this is, look at this. Here we go. Things take more time and more personal commitment. I can tell you a little story about this. One time we were in the middle of a project with Pemex, and we were in the city of Campeche. We were in the city in Campeche, Ciudad Carmen, and I got a call, and we were looking at another contract, another possible project with the company, and they called and said, yeah, we need to get together and meet. So we got in our cars, and I was there with my project coordinators. We got in the car, and we made the 2-hour drive. We got to the city, to the other city, where the office was. We sat down, we waited for about 15 minutes, and the person had some time. We sat together and said, you know, we are going to move forward, and we just want your personal commitment to this, and this is going to work. It was like a 5-minute session just to confirm that we were moving forward with the project. And then we went back to our car, and made a 2-hour drive back. Some of my American team members don't understand that. They're shocked. They go like, why didn't they just say that over the phone? No, in this case, what they want is for you to show up there personally, to see you face to face and to talk about this, to see your personal commitment to the project. In that sense, make allowances in your project for more time to have personal meetings. There is more and more video conferencing and things like that, but a lot of things have to be done more in person, much more so than in the United States. So in your project, allow that time, budget for that time to go and meet face to face and discuss things. 3 times as much as you would do for a US project. Very, very important. And finally, time and process management are much more dependent on interpersonal elements. You might have timetables, you might have a lot of things, but it depends. Things are always depending on the situation and how things are moving. Okay. These are some of the key recommendations, and of course, it's important to study more in depth all this and get your team ready with good training before they go down there and start to act. It is very important. To close, I would just like to close with something that Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War, said. The Art of War, for those who haven't yet read the book, is a book on strategy written in China over 2,400 years ago. And from time on, it's still the best book on strategy that I've ever read. And it's very thin, it's a very little book, but it says so much. And in there, Sun Tzu says, know yourself and know your opponent, and in 100 battles you will not lose. But then he also goes on to say, you know, if you don't know yourself and you don't know your opponent, you are at risk every time you go into battle, and you're a fool. So it is very important to not just know about all the other things that we've been talking about, you know, the regulatory environment, which is critical, and the technical aspects and all the, the legal aspects, but it is also very important to take culture very much into account and make it part of your strategic planning, make it part of your risk analysis, because it will impact your business. And with that, I'd like to close. I'd like to thank everybody, and we'll leave it open for questions. Anabel, you want to take it?
Thank you, Alberto. Thanks for that great presentation. So right now, we're going to open the webinar for, I'm sorry? We're going to open the webinar for Q&A. So everyone, please, if you have any, we have a few questions, and if anybody has any, yes, Alberto? Alberto, can you hear me?
Do you all have any questions? We have a chat open here. Any questions you might have?
Hello, can everybody hear me? Okay, good. All right, Alberto, can you hear me? Alberto? Okay, so I'm sorry, everyone. I think the speaker might have some issues
Nobody has
with his. Let me see. 1 second, please.
My email is, if you want to ask any questions, my email is alberto@cicollaboration.com. That's when the slide, or to the International Business Center, Trade Center, so you can make any questions, you can ask any questions you might have.
Alberto, can you hear me? Okay, everyone. You cannot hear us, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to send the question to him through the chat box and let him respond and also say the question. So if everybody can just be a little patient with us, please. Okay, everyone, the first question is...
Okay, we have a question here on examples between high and low context situations. Yes, for example, when in high context cultures, when somebody asks somebody to do something and they don't see that it's going to be able to be done, it's very rare that they will say it right out. In Mexico, for example, they say, I need this by Tuesday. People will say, yeah, okay, yeah, we'll try hard to get it to you by then. And even though they know they won't be able to get it, but it's considered very bad manners, very rude to say no right out loud, right out. In Japan, it's the same. I lived in Japanese 7 years of my life. In Japan, if you say, can you get this done by then, people will look a little embarrassed, rub the back of their head, their neck, and say, it's going to be difficult, but we will try our best, which in fact is saying, no, we cannot do it. And so these are some other examples. Therefore, also in business deals, when the deal is moving forward, nobody will say negative things. Nobody will say no or no negative things. They're just implied. Okay. The only exceptions are when you are part of a team and the head of that team is dissatisfied or something is not happening as they expected. They do have the right of being very, very harsh and very blunt because they are the bosses. That goes together with the hierarchy. It's a very high power distance culture. So in that sense, the boss has the right to be very, very rude, very direct in many cases. So that's one of the few exceptions to high context, low context. Okay. I hope that helps. Okay, and for the company, they don't have any context and they don't speak Spanish. Right off the bat, I would say you need to get somebody who speaks Spanish and understands the culture. If you have never been there, you don't have any context, you need to start by getting somebody that can lead you in there. This goes almost for any country like Mexico. You need to have a good person, I don't know, maybe get a rep, a person who speaks the language, number one. But number two, most importantly, because a lot of people in Mexico speak English, most of the professionals speak English, but most importantly, knows the lay of the land. Somebody that can provide you with an already established network of contacts in the specific sector. This is very, very important. Whenever we advise, organizations in going in there, and we always tell them that either through companies like us or somebody that they can get as a rep. But you have to be very careful who you choose. It has to be somebody, and then again, you have to make sure that this is a person who can really deliver, because sometimes it will not be the case. But that's my recommendation. Don't take all the time to build up the network in there. It will take you a long time. It's better to just get somebody who can get you in there faster and who knows who to talk to and how to talk to. And in that sense, for example, we help a lot of companies with that. We've been there a long time. So that's one of the big things. The know-how cultural, and the know-who. I hope that helps.
Okay. I apologize for the inconvenience, but are there any additional questions? Also, if you'd like, I will be sending out an email with a link to our survey for the presentation and with our contact information. So if you do have any additional questions, please do feel free to send them our way and we can respond accordingly. But thank you, everyone. Oh, there's a question. Where can we buy your books? Let me go ahead and ask the speaker. And if it's okay with the presenter, I will be sending a copy of the PowerPoint presentation in PDF format. But that's only if it's okay with the presenter, and I will ask them, and that will come in with together with the survey. The link for the survey, and please, if you can complete the survey for us, that's very important for us in our program.
My books. So the two books can be well, the last book that I wrote, which is Cultural Intelligence for the 21st Century, can be obtained online, and I'll send the link. It's Editorial Contactos in Mexico. Those two books were written for the Mexican market and very much for the Mexican environment. Just a little pitch. I'm finishing right now my third book, which is going to be in English here, and it's going to be called Beyond Understanding, and how it's important to go beyond just understanding each other in order to establish good collaboration agreements at cultural level. I'll send the link to Editorial Contacto, which is the editorial house that publishes my books in Mexico. And to send the presentation, yes, I have no issues with that, and we can send you a PDF of the presentation. Absolutely, with that pleasure.
Okay, there's one more question. If you would please be patient, let me just go ahead and type it in for the presenter.
Okay, we have a question about the benefits of joining right now the Mexican oil workforce in Mexico, or is it better here in the border states, such as Texas? In that, I have to say something. Speaking for Pemex, not just for the other oil companies, speaking for Pemex, I can attest that they are looking at a big need for more oil engineers, more highly trained technical people in both downstream, midstream, and upstream. Because for many years, the Mexican universities haven't really churned out as many professionals in the field, as many technical professionals in the field as are needed, and now there's going to be an even greater need. So I would say that in the next years, getting a job down there in the oil sector will be there will be a great demand, and I think that there's a great opportunity to go down there and get jobs in that sense, in that part. That being said, I don't know how the behavior of the salaries and compensation is going to be as compared to what you will get here, in the oil sector in Texas. But there will be a great need, and there will be great opportunities in the next 10 years for young professionals or for professionals that are looking to join and as the oil sector down there as workers, as engineers and technical personnel. There is a great need. Indeed.
Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you for your questions. Please expect that that email from me. I will be coming either today or tomorrow morning with a copy of the presentation and a link to complete our survey. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I'm sorry about the inconvenience with the tech, but just let me know if you have any questions. You can send them my way, and we will respond. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we're done. I'd just like to thank again, the International Trade Center, the U.S. Commercial Service.